Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Nature channel. Tonight, we're going to go somewhere very quiet, deep into the forest, where the trees press close and the air smells of damp earth and old leaves. We're going to sit very still, let our breathing slow down, and let our eyes adjust to the dark. Because tonight, the forest has something to show you, something soft and green and gently, impossibly glowing. Take a slow breath in and let it out. There's no hurry here. This is a place of moss and silence, of cool air and soft ground. And tonight, scattered among the roots and fallen branches, something is quietly lighting itself from within. We're going to spend our time together learning about something truly wonderful, the mushrooms that glow in the dark, not blazing, not harsh, not alarming in any way, just a tender, living light, barely brighter than a whispered secret, rising up from the forest floor and making the night feel like something you were always meant to step into. There are around 100 known species of mushrooms in the world that produce their own light. That number sounds small, but when you think about it, 100 kinds of living things that quietly shine in the dark without fire, without electricity, without any need to be seen. It feels enormous and beautiful. The light they make is called bioluminescence. It's the same kind of light that fireflies carry through summer evenings, the same kind that makes the deep ocean shimmer when you trail your hand through the water at night. It's living light. It comes from a chemical reaction happening inside the mushroom itself, like a tiny, endless candle that never burns anything at all. Scientists have been studying this light for many years, and still, in many ways, it remains a gentle mystery. We know some of the how, but the why the forest decided that some of its mushrooms should glow, is still something we're discovering slowly, the way you discover a path through the trees, one soft step at a time. Most glowing mushrooms are found in tropical forests, where the air is warm and thick with moisture, and the ground is layered deep with fallen things. Brazil has many of them. Japan has some. There are species in Australia, in Belize, in Malaysia, places where the forest is old and lush and full of quiet complexity. But you don't have to travel to find this feeling. Right now, wherever you are, you can close your eyes just slightly and imagine that you're lying on your back on a soft patch of moss in a forest at night, with the tree canopy above you and the earth steady beneath you. The air is cool on your cheeks. Your body is perfectly still. And somewhere, not far from where you rest, a cluster of small mushrooms is glowing, very gently, green and gold. Not asking anything of you, just being alive and lit and quietly extraordinary. Let your shoulders drop a little. Let the story carry you. The first thing to understand about glowing mushrooms is that they are not rare in the way that diamonds are rare, hard to find and locked away. They are rare in the way that a particular moment of light through leaves is rare, happening all the time, in the right places, waiting for someone who knows how to be still enough to notice. In a healthy tropical forest on any given night, bioluminescent mushrooms are almost certainly glowing somewhere. They don't announce themselves. They don't need to be seen to go on glowing. They simply continue, hour after hour, night after night, producing their soft, patient light as naturally as breathing. The scientific term for mushroom bioluminescence is foxfire, and that name alone is worth sitting with for a moment. Foxfire. As if the forest itself is a sly, gentle creature, and the light is its most private expression. Foxfire has been noticed by humans for thousands of years. Ancient Greek writers wrote about wood that glowed in the dark. They had seen the mycelium, the underground web of fungal threads, shining faintly in rotting logs and forest floors. They didn't have a word for it, but they recorded it with the quiet wonder of people who understood that the natural world had its own logic, its own rhythms, its own beauty that didn't need to be explained to be real. Take another slow breath. Let the story settle around you like a blanket. We're just beginning, you and I. There's so much more soft light waiting ahead. Part 2. How the light is made. The forest is very quiet now. The wind has slowed to almost nothing, and the only sound is the occasional soft drip of water from leaf to leaf somewhere above you in the dark. You're still lying on that soft moss, completely comfortable. You're breathing easy and slow, and the mushrooms near you continue their patient, gentle glow. Let's think about how they do it. How does a mushroom make light? It happens through chemistry, but the kind of chemistry that feels more like magic than science. The kind that happens so slowly and so naturally that it seems less like a reaction and more like a mood. Inside glowing mushrooms, there is a molecule called luciferin. The name comes from the Latin word for light bearer, which is also beautifully where we get the name Lucifer, a name that, before it was anything else, simply meant morning star, the brightest light before dawn. In mushrooms, luciferin is the substance that holds the potential for light. It's waiting very patiently inside the fungal cells. When luciferin meets oxygen, the same oxygen you're breathing right now, softly and steadily, a reaction happens. An enzyme called luciferase acts as a kind of gentle catalyst, a quiet introducer, helping the two substances meet and combine. And in the meeting, energy is released, not as heat, not as sound, as light. This is what makes bioluminescence so different from fire. Fire is hungry and consuming. It takes wood and oxygen and turns them into heat and ash and motion. Bioluminescence is patient and complete. It takes very little, and it makes only light. No heat, no burning, no waste. Just a cool, constant, living glow. The efficiency of this process is almost impossible to imagine. In a light bulb, nearly 90% of the energy used becomes heat, and only a small portion becomes visible light. In bioluminescent organisms, almost all of the energy goes directly into making light. It is one of the most efficient processes in all of nature. Imagine if every step you took produced light instead of warmth. Imagine if breathing itself left a gentle, luminescent trail in the air around you. That is what it is like, in a very small way, to be a glowing mushroom on a forest floor in Brazil at 3 in the morning. The glow of most bioluminescent mushrooms is green, a particular shade of green that sits somewhere between lime and emerald, soft at the edges and steady at the center. It's not a flashing light like a firefly. It doesn't pulse or flicker. It simply glows, continuous and calm, for as long as the chemistry allows. Some species glow brightest in their caps, the wide, rounded tops that collect dew in the morning and shelter tiny insects from the rain. Others glow most strongly in their gills, those paper-thin layers on the underside of the cap that release spores into the air. And some glow throughout their entire structure, from cap to stem, to the mycelium threads spreading through the soil below. If you were to walk through a tropical forest in the dark and let your eyes truly adjust, standing still for 10 or 15 minutes, breathing slowly, letting the visual noise settle, you might begin to see them. First one, then another a little further away, then a cluster huddled together around the base of a fallen tree. Each one small, each one steady, each one holding its light with the kind of quiet confidence that comes from simply being what you are. Feel free to leave a comment below and share what first comes to mind when you imagine a glowing mushroom. We'd love to hear what this place looks like to you. And if you're enjoying this gentle journey, a like on the video helps more people find their way here too. The light that glowing mushrooms produce is not very strong by human standards. It wouldn't let you read a book. It wouldn't light your way down a dark path. But it is precisely the right brightness for what it is. A soft presence in a dark place, a reminder that the forest is alive even when everything appears to have gone still and silent. Scientists measure the brightness of bioluminescent mushrooms and find it remarkably consistent within a species. Each mushroom of the same type produces almost exactly the same amount of light, as if they have agreed among themselves on the appropriate level of glow. Not too much, not too little, just enough to be softly, quietly extraordinary. Your breath is slow and steady. The moss beneath you is cool and soft. The green light nearby is unwavering. Let the chemistry of it wash over you, not as something to understand and memorize, but as something to feel. You too are a collection of chemical processes happening all at once, producing warmth and breath and thought. You too are a kind of bioluminescent thing, not in the visible spectrum, but in your own way, radiating the quiet energy of being alive. The mushrooms glow because they cannot help it. It is simply what they do, and you breathe because you cannot help it. Simply what you do. Part 3, the oldest light. Time is softer in the forest at night. Minutes stretch like taffy, slow and sweet, and an hour can feel like a whole life lived gently. You're still there in the dark, still comfortable, still listening. The glowing mushrooms haven't moved, of course. They never do. They simply continue. Let's go back, far back, much further than you might expect. Bioluminescence is not a new invention. It is, in fact, one of the oldest tricks in the book of life. A trick so useful, so quietly elegant, that nature has invented it independently, dozens of separate times over the course of evolution. Fish in the deep ocean, fireflies in the meadow, certain jellyfish, certain bacteria, certain types of plankton, and yes, mushrooms. Each one found the same solution through a completely different path, the way several poets might write the same word to express the same feeling without ever having read each other's work. Fossil evidence and genetic studies suggest that bioluminescence in fungi, in mushrooms, and their relatives may have first appeared over 100 million years ago. The forests of that time were different in shape and species, but the chemistry was the same. Luciferin meeting oxygen, luciferase making the introduction, light happening as naturally as breathing. The dinosaurs may have walked through forests lit by glowing fungi. Take a moment to sit with that. The same soft green light that glows near you tonight, or near you in your imagination tonight, also glowed in forests where creatures whose names we say slowly and with a kind of reverence walked through undergrowth that whispered in the ancient dark. The mushrooms kept glowing. The world changed around them. The light remained. There is something deeply comforting about that continuity. The world has been through ice ages and meteor impacts and the slow drift of continents, and through all of it, somewhere in a warm, moist forest, a glowing mushroom has been doing exactly what glowing mushrooms do, quietly, persistently, without drama. The species that glow today are not the same as those ancient ones. Evolution has reshaped them across the millions of years, the way a river reshapes its banks without ever stopping its flow. But the basic chemistry, the fundamental act of making living light, has been preserved, passed down through generations of fungi, the way a family might pass down a quiet habit, the particular way of sitting in the evening, the particular gesture of looking up at the stars. In Japan, there is a glowing mushroom called Mycena chlorophyllus. Its name means green light in Greek, which is exactly what it makes. A lovely, unhurried green light that emerges most strongly in the first few days of a mushroom's life when it is young and fresh and still growing. After that, the glow slowly fades, like a lamp being turned down very gently, until the mushroom lives the rest of its time in ordinary darkness. This species grows in tropical and subtropical forests, often after rain, which brings moisture into the soil and the air and encourages all kinds of life to emerge and breathe and glow. In Japan, there are certain valleys where Mycena chlorophyllus grows in such numbers that people visit specifically to walk through the light at night. They go quietly, without loud music or bright torches, and they move slowly through the green dark, the way you'd move through a dream you didn't want to end. Imagine being one of those visitors. You've been walking for an hour in darkness, letting your eyes adjust, and then, gradually, around a bend in the path, the forest begins to glow. Not one mushroom, dozens, scattered along the path, nestled at the bases of trees, clustered on the surfaces of fallen logs. each one small, each one green, each one completely, serenely calm. You stop walking, you just stand there, breathing. That's what it's like. And if you enjoy imagining places like this, if the image of a green-lit forest path at night brings you something soft and peaceful, then you might want to check out our playlist of nature sleep stories, where there are many more journeys just like this one waiting for you. The link is right there for you to find at your leisure. The oldest light in the forest doesn't ask to be noticed. It simply shines, as it has always shined, in the warm, wet dark, for reasons it does not need to explain. That kind of patience, the patience of something that has been glowing for 100 million years and sees no reason to stop, is something you can borrow for a moment if you like. Breathe it in, the oldest light, patient, green, unwavering. Part 4, the mystery of why. Here's the question that scientists find most interesting, and that you might find most relaxing to think about as you drift towards sleep. Why do mushrooms glow? Not how. We've walked through the chemistry already, the luciferin and the luciferase, and the quiet meeting of molecules in the dark. But why? What purpose does the glow serve? What does the forest want from this soft light? The honest answer, the one scientists give with a kind of contented shrug, is we're not entirely sure. And that not sure is one of the most beautiful things about it. Here's what we do know. The glow is metabolically costly. Making light requires energy, and energy is something mushrooms gather slowly from the wood and soil around them. Producing light when you don't have to spend energy on it is unusual in nature. Evolution tends to trim away anything that costs energy without providing a benefit. So, the glow must be doing something useful. It must be earning its keep. But what? One of the most widely discussed ideas is that the light attracts insects. Think about this for a moment. In the daytime, many plants and fungi attract insects with color and scent. Bees visit flowers for nectar, and in doing so, carry pollen from bloom to bloom and make reproduction possible. But at night, color is invisible. Scent still works, but light is uniquely, powerfully, irresistibly attractive to many nocturnal insects. Moths, beetles, flies, gnats. They are drawn to light the way we are drawn to a warm window on a cold night. They can't help it. They see the light and they move toward it. And when they land on a glowing mushroom, they walk across its surface, picking up microscopic spores on their bodies. Then they fly away, carrying those spores with them, spreading them across the forest floor, and maybe into the next valley, and the next forest, and the next pool of dark, warm air beneath the trees. The mushroom uses light the way a flower uses color, as an invitation. Come here, come close. Take something of me with you when you go. There's something lovely about that, isn't there? The mushroom doesn't move. It can't walk or fly or swim. It stays exactly where it is, rooted in its log or its soil, and it makes itself beautiful and visible in the one time of day when its desired visitors are awake and flying. It adapts to the darkness instead of fighting it. It makes the darkness into a gift. Another idea, not contradictory, but complementary, is that the glow might deter certain predators or parasites. Some organisms that might otherwise eat a mushroom or infect it with their own spores may find the glowing slightly off-putting, slightly unsettling. In nature, unusual things are often avoided by cautious creatures. The glow might be saying, quietly but clearly, "I am unusual. Think twice." A third idea, softer and more speculative, is that the bioluminescence is simply a byproduct, a harmless side effect of other chemical processes happening in the mushroom. Not useful, not harmful, just happening. The way warmth radiates from a working engine, even though warmth isn't what the engine was designed to produce. On this view, the glow is almost accidental. It's just what happens when certain molecules meet in a certain way in a certain kind of cell. Scientists argue gently about which explanation is right, or whether all of them are right in different species or different circumstances. The forest, as always, resists simple answers. But here is what I find most peaceful about the mystery. Whether the mushroom glows to attract insects or to deter predators, or simply because it cannot help it, the glow itself is unchanged. It is equally soft and green and steady, regardless of its purpose. The light does not need to know why it exists to go on existing. And maybe that's something worth carrying with you tonight, as your eyes grow heavy and the story wraps around you like warm air. You don't always need to know why. Sometimes you can simply be present in the light. Breathe slowly. Let the mystery be comfortable. Part 5. The Mushrooms of Brazil. Brazil holds more species of glowing mushroom than almost anywhere else on Earth. And this makes a kind of sense when you think about the country's forests. The Amazon and its tributaries, the Atlantic forest along the coast, the deep and humid Mata Ciliar along the riverbanks. These are places of extraordinary biological richness, where the soil is layered deep and the wood never fully dries, and the conditions for fungal life are as close to perfect as they get on this planet. In 2009 and 2010, a team of researchers led by a Brazilian mycologist made an extraordinary discovery. They found 10 new species of bioluminescent mushrooms in Brazil in just a few years of focused searching, nearly doubling the number of known glowing species in the world at that time. These were mushrooms that had been glowing in the dark forest for perhaps millions of years, completely unknown to science, found at last by people who went looking with patience and good equipment and a genuine desire to understand. Several of these species belong to a genus called Neonothopanus. One particular species, Neonothopanus gardneri, grows at the base of young babaçu palms in forests in Piauí, a state in northeastern Brazil. It grows in clusters around the roots of the palm, which it feeds on as the palm slowly breaks down, returning the nutrients of the fallen palm back to the soil in the patient, useful way that fungi have been doing for hundreds of millions of years. At night, these clusters of mushrooms glow with a steady green-gold light, bright enough to read by if you held a page close enough. In the forests where they grow, local people have known about them for generations. They call them flor de coco, flower of the coconut palm. And some villages have stories about this light that go back as far as anyone can remember. The mushrooms were never a mystery to the people who lived near them. They were simply a fact of the night forest, beautiful and familiar. When the scientists came with their cameras and their measurement tools, the local guides weren't surprised by the discovery. They just nodded and said, "Yes, those. We know those." This is a small and perfect reminder that scientific knowledge and lived knowledge are not the same thing, and that the world is full of people who have understood something beautiful for a very long time, waiting for the wider world to catch up. The Atlantic forest of Brazil, which runs along much of the country's eastern coastline, was once one of the largest tropical forests in the world. Today, it has been significantly reduced by centuries of human activity, but what remains is extraordinarily rich in species. It holds one of the highest concentrations of endemic species on Earth, meaning species found nowhere else. Some of the glowing mushrooms discovered in recent years come from this forest. They glow in fragments of forest that have survived between cities and farmland, islands of the old world, still doing what the old world does, still making their quiet light in the dark. There's something tender about imagining those mushrooms glowing in a small patch of remaining forest, surrounded by roads and fields and electric light, unaware of what surrounds them, simply doing what they were made to do. Let your breathing slow a little more. Feel the weight of your body settling. In these Brazilian forests, the nights are warm and the air is full of soft sounds. The high, thin singing of insects, the occasional call of a night bird, the slow drip and movement of water through the canopy. Against all of this soft noise, the mushrooms glow without sound. They are the silence in the forest, the still point. Researchers studying Neonothopanus gardneri set up cameras near the mushroom clusters to capture images of what came to visit in the night. They found gnats and flies landing on the glowing caps, walking across the surfaces, taking off again with spores attached to their feet and bodies. The mushrooms used the light, and the insects used the mushrooms, and the spores moved through the dark forest on tiny wings, looking for their next place to grow. Everything in the forest is in conversation. Everything is an exchange. The mushroom gives light, the gnat gives movement, the forest receives more mushrooms, round and round as it has always been in the warm Brazilian dark. Feel how soft that circle is, how complete, nothing wasted, nothing lost. Part 6, Mycena, the glow-in-the-dark genus. If you were to take a long, quiet walk through the world of glowing mushrooms, you would find yourself returning again and again to one particular genus, Mycena. These are small mushrooms, often delicate, growing in vast numbers on decaying wood in forests around the world. Most of them are not bioluminescent, but a surprising number are, and they represent the largest group of glowing fungi known to science. Mycena mushrooms are sometimes called bonnets because of the way their caps sit rounded and small, like little hats left behind by tiny forest creatures. They are rarely noticed during the day. They're too small, too modest, tucked in at the bases of logs and tree stumps, easy to step over if you don't know to look. But at night, the glowing ones become suddenly, quietly visible, their small caps producing that familiar soft light. Their presence in the dark much more apparent than their presence in the day. There is something philosophically interesting about a creature that is more visible in the dark than in the light. Mycena chlorophyos, which we met briefly in an earlier part of our journey, grows particularly in Japan and other parts of East and Southeast Asia. It prefers very specific conditions: high humidity, warm temperatures, recently fallen wood or bamboo, and the kind of dense tropical canopy that keeps the forest floors sheltered from wind and sun. When all these conditions come together after rain, the mushrooms emerge and they glow, most intensely in the first 3 days or so of their above-ground life, then more softly, then not at all. This timing, this brief window of maximum glow, is one of the things that makes researchers think the light is genuinely functional, serving some purpose rather than being accidental. Why would the light be brightest in the early days if it didn't need to accomplish something time-sensitive? Why would it fade rather than simply continue? The answer, many think, is spore dispersal. The young mushroom's gills, where the spores are developing and maturing, are glowing and ready for visitors exactly when the spores are ready to be carried away. The light is not just beautiful, it is, in a way, a schedule. Another Mycena species found in the forests of Brazil and other parts of Central and South America is called Mycena luxa aeterna, whose name is a gift in itself. Lux aeterna means eternal light in Latin, the same phrase used in the famous and beautiful choral music, the same phrase carved sometimes into old stones in old places as a kind of blessing. Eternal light. The mushroom carries this name not because it literally glows forever, but because of the particular quality of its glow, even sustained, golden at the center, that reminded someone of something that lasts. Mycena luxa aeterna grows on the decaying stems of bamboo, emerging from the dead material in small clusters, its cap pale and slightly translucent, as if the light inside it can almost be seen through the surface. If you cupped one in your hands, very carefully without disturbing it, you might see the glow filtering through your fingers like the light through a paper lantern. Hold that image for a moment. A small mushroom, a hand cupped around it, green gold light between your fingers. That is the gentleness of this world we're in tonight. If this image is staying with you, if you'd like to return to stories like this one, there's a whole playlist waiting for you with more journeys through the quiet, natural world. You might find just the right place to return to on nights when you need a little more forest and a little less noise. The Mycena family also includes some species where different parts of the mushroom glow, with different intensities, the cap glowing less than the stem, or the gills glowing far more brightly than the rest. In some species, the mycelium itself, the root-like network of threads spreading through the wood below the surface, glows while the above-ground mushroom does not. In these cases, the bioluminescence is happening out of sight, underground in the dark below the dark, a secret light that no one sees. Does a light that no one sees still count as light? Yes, of course it does. The forest doesn't need witnesses to be real. The glow in the deep wood has been happening since long before there were eyes to see it, and it will go on after the last eye closes. That thought is very calming if you let it be. The world continues, the light continues. With or without our attention, the quiet processes go on. Breathe softly, let your eyes rest. We'll keep going slowly. Part 7, The Forest at 3 in the morning. There's a particular quality to the forest at 3 in the morning that is different from any other time. Not midnight, which still carries the energy of the day just ended. Not 5 in the morning, when the first birds are beginning to stir and the darkness is already softening at its edges. 3 in the morning is the deepest quiet, the most complete stillness, the hour when even the wind tends to pause and the animals that are awake are moving very quietly through their small errands. This is when the mushrooms seem to glow most beautifully. Not because the glow is stronger, it's the same steady light it always is, but because everything else has quieted to meet it. The forest's darkness has reached its full depth, and in that depth, the green-gold points of light are at their most visible, their most extraordinary. If you were a researcher studying bioluminescent mushrooms, 3 in the morning would be your favorite hour. You would set up your photography equipment in the early evening, walk carefully to the site you had scouted, and then wait and wait, letting your eyes adjust, letting the sounds of your own arrival settle and fade. And then, in the full dark, you would begin to see them. Researchers who have done exactly this describe a feeling that is hard to put into ordinary language, something between awe and deep physical calm. The word they reach for again and again is peace. The glowing mushrooms make people feel peaceful. This might be partly because of the light itself. Cool green light has been shown to have a calming effect on the human nervous system, the same reason that looking at trees reduces heart rate and blood pressure. Green is the color of rest in the human eye. It's what our vision was calibrated for in the long evolutionary morning when we were forest creatures moving through dappled light and leaf shadow. But it might also be the context. You're in a forest, in silence, in the dark, in the middle of the night. You've walked carefully, breathed slowly, let the world slow down around you. And then the world offers you something in return, a gift you didn't ask for and didn't expect. Something small and glowing, quietly alive, asking nothing of you. That's a profound feeling, that the world gives gifts to those who go slowly enough to receive them. Now imagine those researchers carefully photographing the mushrooms, long exposure shots that gather the dim light over many minutes. The camera shutter open and patient, while the sensor slowly collects the photons coming from the glowing caps. In these long exposure photographs, the mushrooms often look far brighter than they appear to the naked eye. They appear luminous, almost radiant, surrounded by a soft haze of light that seems to extend beyond their edges. This is because the camera, like time itself, accumulates. It doesn't see a single moment. It sees many moments layered together. And in that accumulation, small lights become visible that the eye, moving too quickly through time, would never notice. What if we could accumulate moments like a camera? What if we could let many quiet moments layer over each other and see what becomes visible in the sum of them? Perhaps that's what sleep is in a way. The accumulation of small, quiet moments into something larger and more luminous than any single moment could be. Your breathing is very slow now. Your body is very still. The forest at 3 a.m. is the quietest place there is, and you are in it, and the mushrooms are glowing, and the camera is open, and the light is accumulating. In Japan, there are places where local governments have protected the forests where Mycena chlorophyllus grows specifically because of the bioluminescence. The glowing forest has become a kind of natural landmark, a thing worth preserving not for its timber or its carbon sequestration, but for its beauty, its strangeness, its quiet gift of light in the dark. Visitors come in summer when the mushrooms are most active. They walk in small groups, quietly, guided by people who know where to look. They don't use flashlights once they're inside the forest. You'd need to let your eyes adjust for the mushroom light to be visible, and a flashlight would erase it. So, the visitors walk in the dark, trusting their feet and the person ahead of them, until the forest opens and the green light appears. They stand in silence when they see it. Every time, silence. The forest is teaching something without words, and people receive the lesson without needing to translate it. You know that feeling. You're in it right now. Part 8. The Mycelium Web. Beneath your feet, beneath the forest floor, beneath the moss and the leaf litter and the thin crust of soil, there is another world, one that you cannot see, that has no above-ground form to catch your eye, that exists entirely in the dark and damp and silence of the earth. This is the world of mycelium. Mycelium is the body of the fungus, not the mushroom, which is just the fruiting part, the temporary above-ground expression, like a flower that blooms and fades. The real body of the fungus is the mycelium, billions of thread-thin filaments called hyphae, spreading through the soil and dead wood and leaf litter in every direction, creating an interconnected network that can stretch for acres. In a single teaspoon of healthy forest soil, there may be several kilometers of mycelial threads. Kilometers in a teaspoon. The scale of it is almost impossible to hold in the mind. So instead, just let the image rest in you. Thread after thread after thread, weaving through the dark earth like the world's most patient embroidery. Some of these mycelial networks are bioluminescent, not all of them. Only in the species we've been talking about, the ones where the chemistry of living light is present. But in those species, the glow is not just in the mushroom cap or the stem. It lives in the root threads too. It lives in the body of the fungus in the earth. This means that in a forest where bioluminescent mushrooms grow, the glow is not just above the surface. It's below the surface too, moving through the soil in the same patterns the mycelium moves, following the same paths the fungal threads follow, from decomposing log to living root to crumbling leaf. The light is in the earth itself somewhere, if you could see through the surface. The famous naturalist and writer Merlin Sheldrake, who has written beautifully about fungi, describes mycelial networks as living in a kind of continuous present, not moving toward goals in the way animals do, but simply spreading and responding and spreading again, following gradients of moisture and nutrients with a quiet, branching intelligence that has no center and no destination. To be a mycelial network is to be everywhere at once, to have no single location, to be a process rather than a thing. This is very different from the way you and I exist, rooted in a body, moving through time with a specific location and a specific direction. But there's something restful about the thought of it, to spread through the dark, following warmth and moisture, branching wherever the conditions invite branching, arriving nowhere in particular because everywhere is equally home. In bioluminescent species, that spreading, directionless, patient network is also full of quiet light. Light in the earth, light along the root paths, light following moisture into the deep places. The forest biologist Suzanne Simard, who spent decades studying how trees communicate through fungal networks, described the forest floor as a wood-wide web, an underground internet of fungal connections, carrying water and nutrients, and even chemical signals from tree to tree, tree to fungus, fungus to seedling. In her vision of the forest, nothing is isolated. Everything is in conversation. Everything is part of a larger body that breathes and responds together. Add to this vision the knowledge that some of these networks glow, that the web of connection lighting the earth below the forest floor may be gently luminescent in certain magical patches of forest, and you have an image of extraordinary, quiet wonder. The forest floor above you is dark and soft, but below you, in the soil, something is glowing, threading its quiet light through the dark earth, connecting tree to tree along paths of living light. Let that image settle into your body like warmth. You are resting on top of a network of light. The earth holds you, and in the earth, something glows. A like on the video, if you're enjoying this journey, means so much. It tells us that these slow, soft stories are reaching the right people, and we're grateful every time. Thank you for being here in the quiet with us. The mycelium doesn't know it's glowing, probably. It has no self-awareness, no sense of its own light. It simply does what it does, and the light happens as a consequence. The light is not a choice. It is an expression, a side effect of being what it is, doing what it does. What is the light that you carry, doing what you do? Breathe softly. The question doesn't need an answer tonight. Some questions are just for carrying. Part 9. Rain and the First Glow. Most glowing mushrooms wait for rain. This is a fact with texture to it, something you can feel rather than just understand. The mushrooms are there, always, in the form of mycelium threads through the wood and soil. Patient, invisible, not yet ready. And then rain comes. It falls through the canopy in a soft percussion of sound, collecting on leaves and running down bark and soaking into the earth, bringing with it moisture and oxygen and a slight cooling of the air. And the mushrooms begin to emerge. This process, called fruiting, is the mushroom sending up its above-ground form, the cap and stem structure we recognize from the mycelial network below. The fruiting body is temporary and purposeful. Its job is to make and release spores, then fade away. But while it's present, it glows. The connection between rain and bioluminescence is one of the things that makes glowing mushroom season feel like a celebration. In the forests of Japan, where Mycena chlorophyllus grows, experienced observers watch the weather with patient attention. When the right rain falls, warm, sustained, soaking, they know that within a day or two, the forest will begin to glow. They make their plans. They walk quietly into the forest and wait. The emergence is quick by forest standards, though slow by human impatience. A few hours after rain, the first tiny caps push up through the damp soil or the saturated wood, pale and small. By the following night, they're fully formed and glowing. By the night after that, they may be fading. The whole performance, the bloom, the glow, the fade, can happen in as few as 3 or 4 days. 3 or 4 days of soft light, then silence and waiting for the next rain. This brevity is part of what makes the experience of seeing these mushrooms so tender. You can't plan it too far in advance. You can't schedule it in a calendar for 3 months from now. You can only be ready. Keep your eyes on the rain, your feet ready for the forest path, your heart prepared for the possibility of soft green light. And when the conditions are right, you go. You go quietly and gratefully, knowing it won't last. There's a Japanese word, mono no aware, that describes the bittersweet quality of beautiful things that are temporary. It's often used in the context of cherry blossoms, the flowers that last only a week or two before falling. But it fits the glowing mushrooms perfectly too. Their beauty is inseparable from their brevity. They glow because they are brief. Their briefness makes the glow precious. Mono no aware, the gentle sadness and sweetness of passing things. But there's nothing heavy in this tonight, just the soft understanding that brief things are real things, maybe even more real for being brief, more awake, more vivid, more fully themselves in the short time they have. In Australia, there is a bioluminescent mushroom called Omphalotus nidiformis, sometimes called the ghost fungus. It grows on dead wood and living trees alike. usually in clusters of overlapping caps, large, pale, cream-colored during the day, ghostly and luminous at night. It, too, tends to fruit after rain, after a period of warmth and moisture. Hikers sometimes come across it accidentally, walking through Australian forests at night and noticing a pale glow from a eucalyptus log or a dead tree stump. Unexpected and disorienting until they get close and understand what they're seeing. Ghost fungus. What a name to carry. What a light to make. The Australians who encounter it describe a feeling of stopped time, that particular quality of a moment that asks you to pay attention, that says, something unusual is happening right here, right now, and you will want to remember this. Your body is warm and heavy. Your breath is slow. Outside, wherever you are right now in the world, it may or may not be raining. But in the forest, you're imagining rain has just fallen, and the air is cool and full of the smell of wet earth. And somewhere on a log not far away, the ghost fungus is beginning to glow. You don't have to go find it. You can just lie here and know it's glowing. That's enough. That's more than enough. Part 10. Animals in the glow. The forest at night is never empty. This is important to understand, and also surprisingly comforting. When you think the forest is still and silent, it is in fact full of activity. Just quiet activity, careful activity, the activity of creatures who have learned to move softly through the dark. Glowing mushrooms are part of this night economy of the forest. They are a resource of light, of structure, of food, and many different animals make use of them in different ways. Gnats are among the most important visitors. These tiny flying insects, often no bigger than a grain of rice, are strongly attracted to light, and the green glow of bioluminescent mushrooms is irresistible to many of them. They land on the glowing caps, walk across the gills, visit the underside of the mushroom where the spores are waiting, and carry those spores away on their bodies when they fly. In this way, gnats are acting as pollinators in a sense, performing for mushrooms the same service that bees perform for flowers, carrying the reproductive material from one place to another. This is a partnership that has existed for a very long time, probably as long as bioluminescence itself has existed in fungi. The mushroom evolved to be attractive to the gnat. The gnat evolved, or perhaps simply was always suited, to be attracted to the light. They found each other in the dark and became necessary to each other. Beetles, too, visit glowing mushrooms. Some beetle species are specifically mycophagous, meaning they eat fungi, and they use the glow as a landmark in the dark, a point of reference that guides them through the understory to a reliable food source. For these beetles, the glowing mushroom is less like a romantic invitation and more like a restaurant with its sign lit up in the night. Here, come here. There is something here for you. Slugs are perhaps less glamorous visitors, but equally important. Slugs are slow, steady consumers of fungi, eating mushrooms of many kinds, including bioluminescent ones. As they move across the forest floor, consuming mushroom tissue, They pass the spores through their digestive systems and deposit them at various points along their slow, meandering path. Slug after slug, night after night, carrying the mushroom forward through the forest, one small deposit at a time. The forest understands that speed is not the only way to travel. In some forests, certain flying squirrels and small rodents are known to eat bioluminescent mushrooms, possibly selecting them by their glow, a bright patch on the forest floor that says, "Food here." These small mammals also disperse spores in the same way that slugs do, and their range is larger, meaning the mushrooms they consume in one part of the forest may ultimately grow in a very different part of the forest, carried there in a small stomach with small legs. There is a theory still being explored that the glow of mushrooms might occasionally be useful to larger animals as a kind of light source. Deer and small mammals moving through a dark forest might benefit from patches of bioluminescence the way we might benefit from a string of dim lights along a path, not bright enough to illuminate the scene, but enough to suggest a direction, enough to make the dark slightly less absolute. Whether or not this is true, there is something wonderful about the idea of a deer pausing in the forest and lowering its head toward a cluster of glowing mushrooms, not to eat them, just to see by them, just to use that small, generous light for a moment before moving on. What would it mean to carry a small, glowing thing with you for a moment and then leave it behind, to borrow a little light from the world and then return it? That feels like something worth thinking about softly as sleep comes closer. If you've found these stories nourishing, if this is the kind of quiet company you like to keep before sleep, please do leave a comment. It's always a joy to hear what images stay with people, what moments feel most real. The community that gathers in the comments of this channel is warm and gentle, like the forest itself. The animals moving through the glowing forest tonight are not frightened of the light. They are oriented by it, drawn to it, sustained by it. The forest offers its light, and the forest receives movement and spores and connection in return. Everything in balance, everything exchanged. The night economy running smoothly, silently on the forest floor. Part 11. Scientists who follow the glow. There are people who have made it their life's work to find glowing mushrooms. They are mycologists, fungi scientists, and they move through the world with a particular quality of attention, noticing things that most people walk past, seeing what others overlook. To find a new bioluminescent mushroom species, you have to do several things. You have to go to places where the forest is old and undisturbed, where the wood has been accumulating and decomposing for decades or centuries. You have to go at the right time of year, when conditions are warm and moist and mushrooms are likely to be fruiting. And then, this is the important part, you have to go at night, and you have to wait. You have to wait for your eyes to adjust. You have to sit in the dark of the forest and let your vision recalibrate to the available light. The way your eyes adjust when you go from a bright room to a dim one, slowly, slowly, the shapes becoming visible, the edges clarifying, the world revealing itself in the low light. Only then, if there is a glowing mushroom nearby, will you see it. This requires a particular personality, not dramatic, not impatient, patient and curious and comfortable with uncertainty, comfortable with dark and quiet and waiting. Denis Desjardins is one of the researchers who discovered several new bioluminescent species in Brazil and other countries. He and his colleagues described the experience of discovering a new glowing mushroom as one of the most satisfying feelings in science. Not the loud satisfaction of a breakthrough, but the quiet satisfaction of a careful observation, of having been still enough to see something real. They describe collecting samples in the dark forest, using red-filtered headlamps to work without destroying their night vision, moving slowly and speaking in whispers. The forest, for them, is a place of respect, something to move through carefully, like a library where someone might be sleeping. I love that image. The forest as library, the mushrooms as books left open on the floor, the researchers moving quietly between the shelves, reading with their eyes adjusted to the dark, the discovery of Neonothopanus gardneri, the Brazilian palm mushroom that glows bright enough to read by, involved a combination of local knowledge and scientific method that is worth understanding for a moment. Scientists had received reports from local communities in northeastern Brazil about glowing fungi near babaçu palms for years. The reports were consistent and specific. At certain times of year, after rain, the base of the palms glowed green at night. But no one had formally collected and described the species. When researchers finally went to look, guided by local knowledge, they found the mushrooms exactly where people said they would be. The species had never been scientifically documented, but it had been known to the local community for generations. The science was confirming what the community already understood. This happens in mycology more than in many other sciences because mushrooms are often noticed first by farmers, foragers, and people who work and live close to the land. The scientists and the community members working together have discovered or confirmed many species that one group could not have found without the other. There is a collaboration happening in these forests between scientist and community, between researcher and forest, between observer and observed, between the patient dark and the willing eye. Tonight, as your eyes close and your breathing slows, you are in your own collaboration with the dark. You are letting the darkness be comfortable. You are letting the story find you where you rest. You are being still enough to receive what the quiet has to offer. That is its own kind of research, your own kind of discovery. The scientists come home from these expeditions with samples and photographs and measurements, and they spend years describing their findings in careful scientific papers. But when they talk about the experience in interviews, in lectures, in the quiet conversations at the end of a conference day, what they come back to is almost always the feeling. The feeling of being in the dark forest, seeing the soft light, being reminded that the world is far more complex and beautiful and alive than any single human mind can hold. That feeling is available to you right now. You don't have to travel to Brazil or Japan. You just have to be still enough and let the story do the rest. Part 12, The Colors of Bioluminescence. Almost all bioluminescent mushrooms glow green. Not all green. There are variations, shades, textures to the light. But the color sits in the green part of the spectrum for most species. And this is not an accident. Green light, specifically the wavelength around 520 to 530 nanometers, is the wavelength that penetrates the forest atmosphere most effectively at night. It travels further through humid air and scattered particles than other wavelengths of light. It is the most visible color in low-light conditions to the eyes of many insects, which makes it the most effective color for attracting the visitors that carry spores. Evolution selected for green the way a skilled designer selects for a particular color, because it works, because it does the job it needs to do in the specific environment where it needs to do it. But the green is not uniform. Some species produce a cooler, bluer green, the color of deep ocean water or new leaves against a cloudy sky. Others produce a warmer, more golden green, like sunlight filtered through dense canopy on a summer afternoon. Some mushrooms glow with a color so specific and distinctive that experienced mycologists can identify a species by its shade of green alone, the way a wine expert might identify a grape variety by its color. The Japanese ghost mushroom, Pinellus stypticus, produces what many observers describe as the most beautiful glow of all the bioluminescent fungi, a particularly vivid, almost electric blue-green that lights the surface of the mushroom with unusual intensity. This species grows in eastern North America and Asia on the dead wood of hardwood trees, especially beech and oak. It's common enough that many people who spend time in Eastern American or Asian forests have encountered it without knowing what it was. The name Pinellus stypticus means roughly a stringent little panel, which is not the most romantic name for something that glows blue-green in the dark. But names don't always have to match their subjects. The mushroom glows regardless of what it's called. In Australia, the ghost fungus Omphallotus nidiformis glows with a particularly pale, almost white-green light, closer to the color of moonlight than to the vivid greens of many tropical species. This quality gives it its ghostly reputation. If you were walking through an Australian forest at night and saw that pale, diffuse glow rising from a fallen log, you might understand immediately why someone once reached for the word ghost. The ghost fungus is large by mushroom standards. Caps can be 20 centimeters across, sometimes larger. A cluster of them on a fallen tree can produce enough combined light to be visible from several meters away, even to human eyes that have not fully adjusted to the dark. Early European settlers in Australia sometimes reported seeing these glowing logs at night and being frightened or confused, or simply stopped in their tracks by the strangeness of it. The world was always stranger and more beautiful than the frameworks people brought to it. Bioluminescent light has a quality called coherence that distinguishes it subtly from other kinds of light. It is not scattered or refracted in the way that electric light is. It comes from the surface of the mushroom itself, emanating directly from the cells where the chemistry is happening. It has, observers consistently report, a quality of being alive in a way that other light is not. Not warm, exactly, but present. Conscious, almost, though that's not the right word. What they mean, I think, is that the light feels like it belongs where it is. It's not from outside, not imported, not imposed on the darkness. It grew there in that specific place, as part of that specific living thing. It's native to the forest in a way that a flashlight never could be. Your eyes are probably closed now, or nearly. The room you're in, your room, your bed, your particular place in the world is dark or nearly dark. And the light you're imagining is green and cool and native to the forest floor and growing there as naturally as breathing. Let it be exactly as bright as it needs to be. Not too much, just enough. The right amount of light for this particular quiet moment. Part 13. The ocean's echo bioluminescence in mushrooms connects to a much wider web of living light, one that spans the entire planet, from the deepest ocean trenches to the surfaces of tropical forest floors. The ocean is, in many ways, the original home of bioluminescence. The deep ocean is so dark that no sunlight reaches it, and yet it is full of life, and much of that life makes its own light. Anglerfish dangle glowing lures in the absolute dark of the ocean floor to attract prey. Firefly squid pulse with blue light along their tentacles as they rise to the surface at night. Deep-sea jellyfish trail long threads of bioluminescent tissue through water that has never seen the sun. Some estimates suggest that more than 75% of deep-sea creatures produce some form of bioluminescence. In the absolute dark, light is not a luxury. It is a language. It is how you attract mates and lure prey and warn predators and communicate with your own kind. The mushrooms of the forest floor and the creatures of the deep ocean are not related. They evolved their bioluminescence completely independently, billions of years and thousands of evolutionary branches apart. And yet, they use the same fundamental chemistry: luciferin, luciferase, oxygen, light. The universe, it seems, has a preference for this particular solution to the problem of making light from living matter. There's something deeply calming about the idea that the same chemistry happening in a glowing mushroom on a tropical forest floor is also happening in a creature drifting through the dark ocean at a depth where the pressure would be crushing to anything not built for it. The same molecules doing the same thing in two completely different worlds. Chemistry is a kind of language too, and bioluminescence is one of its most widely spoken words. Plankton, microscopic organisms drifting in the upper layers of the ocean, are bioluminescent in several species. When conditions are right, these plankton multiply into enormous blooms, and the ocean surface glows at night. Waves breaking on the shore leave trails of blue-green light. Boats leave luminescent wakes stretching behind them in the dark. If you swim in these conditions, your body creates its own halo of light. Your arms, your legs, your hands trailing glow as they move through the water. This is one of the most extraordinary experiences available to a human being, to swim in a bioluminescent sea at night and be surrounded by living light, to feel the water moving against your skin and see the light responding to your movement, to be momentarily part of the chemistry of living things, making light together. People who have done this describe it as one of the most peaceful and profound experiences of their lives. The same word comes up again: peace. Bioluminescence makes people feel peaceful. In the ocean, as in the forest, the dinoflagellates, the most common bioluminescent plankton, glow when they are disturbed. When a wave moves through them, or a fish swims past, or a hand passes through the water, they respond with a brief flash of blue light. They glow when touched. They glow when something moves near them. The forest mushrooms, by contrast, glow continuously, not in response to disturbance, but steadily, whether anything is near them or not. Their light is unconditional. It asks nothing of you before it gives itself. Both kinds of bioluminescence are beautiful. Both are peaceful. But there is something particularly restful about the forest light, the mushroom light. The light that doesn't need a trigger, doesn't respond to disturbance, just goes on glowing with the patient steadiness of something that has been doing this for a very long time and sees no reason to stop. Whatever is happening around you tonight, whatever the day held, whatever the week has been, the mushrooms in the forest are glowing, not in response to anything, not because of anything, just because that is what they are, just because the chemistry is happening. Let that steadiness be yours for a moment. Breathe it in. Steady, green, unconditional. Part 14, The Forest Remembers. We are nearing the end of our journey through the glowing forest, and the night is very deep now. The deepest part of the night, the 3 a.m. quiet, where the forest is most itself and most at peace. The forest has a memory, not memory the way you and I have memory, not stored in neurons, not recalled with effort, not shaped by emotion, but a kind of record-keeping that is perhaps more honest, the memory of matter. Dead wood contains the memory of the tree it was. Soil contains the memory of everything that has lived and fallen and dissolved into it. The mycelium contains the memory of every place it has grown, every wood it has consumed, every direction it has branched. In some tropical forests, the mycelial networks of bioluminescent species spread through entire ecosystems of fallen wood. Logs layered over logs, nurse logs hosting new trees, old trees becoming the foundation of young ones. The fungal threads that glow have threaded themselves through all of this, connecting the old wood to the new soil, to the living roots, carrying their quiet light through the entire history of the forest's decomposition. Walking through such a forest at night, if you knew where to look, you would be walking through a kind of geological record, layers of luminescence corresponding to layers of time, older mycelium deeper in the soil, newer growth closer to the surface. The glow, a faint outline of the forest's history. One species found in Japan and Korea, Mycena hematopus, the bleeding fairy helmet, is notable not just for its occasional bioluminescence, but for the deep red-purple liquid it exudes when its stem is broken. The color of the liquid gave it its name. Hematopus means blood foot. It's not blood, of course. It's a pigment, a chemical defense. But the name captures the way the mushroom seems to have its own interior life, its own fluids, its own small drama. Most of the time, this mushroom is not glowing, but under the right conditions, in the right forests, at the right time of year, with the right moisture, it does produce a faint luminescence. And so it holds two kinds of beauty in its small body: the daylight beauty of its red-purple liquid and its delicate cap, and the nighttime beauty of its soft glow. Many creatures are like this, holding more than one kind of beauty, showing different things at different times, in different lights. The old-growth forests of the Pacific Northwest in North America, Douglas fir forests, centuries old, with fallen logs as thick as cars, layered in deep moss, host their own bioluminescent fungi. Foxfire, in its original American sense, glows from rotting logs in these forests, not spectacular or easily seen, but present. Forest workers and night hikers have reported it for centuries. The name foxfire itself may be a corruption of the French faux feu, false fire, the name given to the glow by French settlers who saw it in the forests of North America and didn't quite believe what they were seeing. False fire, untrue fire. But it was never false. It was always exactly what it was. The error was only in the word. In these Pacific Northwest forests, the glowing mycelium spreads through logs that are 200, 300, 400 years old. Trees that grew before anyone now living was born, that fell and began their long, slow return to soil, that have been hosting fungal networks for decades. The light in these logs is very faint, much fainter than in tropical species because the chemistry is slightly different, the conditions less perfectly suited. But it's there, the same light, the same patience. It's a comfort, isn't it, that in all these very different places, a Brazilian palm grove, a Japanese valley, an Australian eucalyptus forest, an American old-growth hillside, the same quiet thing is happening. The same chemistry, the same light, the same patient glow rising from the living dark. The world is very large and very varied, but it keeps returning to this, to living light, to green and gold in the dark, to something glowing without asking to be noticed. Wherever you are in the world tonight, there is a forest not impossibly far away where something is glowing. That's not metaphor, that's simply true. Let it be a comfort. The forest is awake, quietly. The light is on, softly. The night is doing what nights do, and you are resting, well and completely, in the middle of all of it. Part 15. The light that stays. The sky is beginning to change now, far above the forest canopy. Not yet light. It won't be light for hours, not truly. But the darkness has achieved its deepest point and begun imperceptibly to soften, the way a held breath softens when it's finally let out. The mushrooms are still glowing. They will glow until they fade, whenever that is, tomorrow perhaps, or the day after. But right now, they are still going, their chemistry still working, their light still rising from them into the dark air. There are around 100 species of bioluminescent mushrooms known to science, but mycologists believe the true number is higher, perhaps much higher. The tropics are vast and understudied, and the forests that hold the most diversity are also the forests that are hardest to access, hardest to survey, hardest to search at night, with the patience and precision required to find and document new species. New glowing mushrooms are still being found. The century of discovery is not over. It may be just beginning. Somewhere tonight, in a forest that no scientist has yet walked through at night, there is a mushroom glowing that no one has named. It has been glowing in that forest for thousands of years, perhaps longer. It doesn't know it's unnamed. It doesn't need a name. It simply glows in the warm dark as it has always done, as it will continue to do. The idea that there are still unnamed glowing things in the world is one of the most beautiful ideas I know. There is still room for discovery. There is still room for wonder. There is still more light in the forest than we've managed to find. As we come to the end of our time together tonight, I want to take you back to the very beginning, to that first image of you lying on soft moss in a dark forest, the trees close around you, the earth steady beneath you. You've been there this whole time, really. The story has been something to breathe with, not something to watch from a distance. Let yourself feel the moss beneath your back. Cool and slightly springy, yielding gently under your weight. The forest air on your face, cool, rich with the smell of earth and bark and old water. Your hands resting at your sides, very still. And nearby, not far, a cluster of small mushrooms on a fallen log glowing, softly and steadily, in the green-gold way they've been glowing for all the parts of this story. They're not asking anything of you. They never were. They don't need to be seen to go on shining. They don't need to be understood to be real. They are simply alive in the forest, in the dark, doing the extraordinary thing they do. You've been with them all night, in your mind and in your rest. And that quiet companionship, the company of glowing things that shine without asking, that are beautiful without requiring an audience, is its own kind of nourishment. The entire playlist of sleepy nature stories is there whenever you want to return to a place like this. The forest, the ocean, the mountains, the night field with its insects and grass. We'll be here, telling slow stories in the quiet, waiting for you with no particular urgency, just readiness and warmth, and the next soft thing to carry you somewhere restful. If this night journey has given you something, a little more calm, a little more wonder, a little more ease, then please do drop a like on the video. It takes only a moment, and it means the world to us. And leave a comment if you'd like about the glowing thing that stays with you, the image that settled somewhere peaceful in your mind. For me, tonight, it's that image of the mycelium in the deep soil, the network of light beneath the forest floor, the slow, patient, directionless glow threading through the dark earth in all directions, not going anywhere, not needing to arrive, simply spreading its light through the old wood and the rich soil, connecting everything to everything else in a web of living light that has been there far longer than any human name for it. That is what the forest holds in its dark and generous soil. That is what this night holds too. Close your eyes now, if they aren't already closed. Let your body go completely heavy, arms, shoulders, jaw, the small muscles around your eyes. Let every breath out be a little more complete than the one before. Let the soft green light be the last thing in your mind as everything else goes quiet. You're safe. You are warm. The forest is glowing quietly, somewhere not far enough away to matter, and you are resting fully, completely, and at peace. Good night.